Chapter 1. Hello, I'd like to apply for a legal name change. Celeste Gardner handed over a stack of perfectly prepared documents. The clerk reminded her, once you change your name, it will affect your past academic records, certifications, work experience, and so on. Are you sure about this? Yes, I'm sure. Please process it for me. Celeste nodded without a moment's hesitation. After her fiancé and her own brother both fell in love with her assistant, Ivy Moss, betraying her love and her trust, she had made up her mind to leave. She would sever all ties with them completely. All right. You will be notified of the result within 10 business days. Please keep an eye out for a text message. Once the process was complete, Celeste walked out of the city records office, took out her phone, and booked a flight for 2 weeks from today. She was going somewhere no one could find her to start her life over again. Just then, her phone rang. Where are you? We're all waiting for you to celebrate your birthday, Ethan Hawthorne, her fiancé, urged impatiently. A sweet female voice followed. It was Ivy Moss, Ethan's new assistant. The same woman who had made him fall for her so quickly. Celeste gripped her phone tightly. Just as she was about to speak, she heard her own brother, Caleb Gardner, speaking gently to Ivy. Are you tired, Ivy? Why don't you come sit down for a bit? The three of them on the other end of the line seemed to forget all about Celeste and started chatting amongst themselves. Just hurry up and get here when you're done, Ethan said, as if suddenly remembering who he was talking to. He offered a perfunctory remark before hanging up. Listening to the dial tone, Celeste let out a bitter laugh. On her own birthday, her fiancé and her brother were fawning over another woman. The restaurant location Ethan had sent was hard to find. Celeste couldn't drive her car in, so she had to walk. By the time she finally arrived, a long time had passed. When Celeste pushed open the door to the private room, she saw Ethan and Caleb gathered around Ivy Moss. The moment they saw Celeste, displeasure crossed both their faces. What took you so long? We've been waiting forever. Celeste, didn't I tell you that Ivy wanted to celebrate your birthday with you? Celeste ignored them, rubbing her hands, which were red from the cold. This place is so hard to find. It took me half an hour to park, and I still had to walk the rest of the way. How did you even find this place? Celeste replied casually. Oh, I'm so sorry, Celeste. Ivy suddenly burst into tears. Celeste looked at her, confused. Ivy's crying only intensified. Celeste, I didn't know it was hard to park here. I just thought the food was delicious and wanted to bring you to try it. With that, Ivy walked towards Celeste, reaching out to take her hand. Celeste frowned and instinctively pulled away, but still asked, You thought it was delicious? You booked this restaurant? Ivy's hand was left hanging awkwardly in midair, and she began to sob even harder. Yes, I booked it. I'm sorry, Celeste. Seeing this, Ethan and Caleb rushed to her side, full of concern, each taking one of her hands. Celeste, Ivy didn't grow up privileged like you did. She went to great lengths to book this place for your birthday. Are you blaming her now? Ethan's eyes were full of reproach as he looked at Celeste. Yeah, Ivy went through so much trouble to make you happy. It's bad enough that you're late, but how can you talk to her like that? Even Caleb looked at her with disapproval. Celeste looked at the two men blaming her and saw nothing but mockery in their eyes. Ethan darling, Caleb darling, I've never driven before, so I didn't realize Celeste might not be used to a small restaurant like this. Please don't blame her, Ivy said, wiping her tears, her voice choked with sobs. Did I say anything? Celeste asked coldly, before Ethan or Caleb could offer their comfort. Ivy looked as if she hadn't expected such a question and began to cry even more hysterically. No, Celeste didn't say anything. It was my fault for overthinking. I'm sorry. With that, Ivy covered her face and ran out of the room. Celeste, you've gone too far. Celeste, how could you say that? One after the other, Ethan and Caleb pushed past Celeste, who was still standing at the door, and chased after Ivy. The push sent Celeste stumbling, and she barely managed to catch herself on the doorframe to keep from falling. The waitress at the door was startled by the scene. Miss, she asked tentatively, should we serve the food now? Yes, please, Celeste said, rubbing her ankle and offering the waitress a polite smile. Sitting alone in the private room, Celeste stared at the table full of food with no appetite. She loved spicy food, but nearly every dish on the table was sweet, just the way Ivy liked it. Anyone who didn't know better would think it was Ivy's birthday, Celeste sneered, putting down her chopsticks. She opened her phone and looked at the two elderly people on her lock screen, her eyes filled with nostalgia. "Grandpa, Grandma, wish me a happy birthday." Celeste and Caleb had lost their parents at a young age and were raised by their grandparents. After their grandfather died saving Ethan's life, their grandmother's health had declined rapidly. Out of gratitude, the Hawthorne family had taken Celeste and her brother in. And before their grandmother passed away, she had arranged for Celeste and Ethan to be engaged. The three of them had grown up together. Caleb had been small as a child and would follow her everywhere, always a little timid. Over the years, although both Celeste and Caleb lived with the Hawthornes, Celeste had insisted on not accepting any unnecessary charity from them. She had raised Caleb, watched him grow up and become a professional basketball player. Ethan had been by her side constantly, protecting her from any harm, even shielding her from contact with other men. When she grew up, she started working at the TV station owned by the Hawthorne family and naturally became Ethan's girlfriend. Their relationship had always been strong until Ivy Moss appeared. It was as if Ethan and Caleb had been put under a spell, constantly revolving around Ivy. Ivy had originally been Celeste's assistant. She had come from a small town, a recent graduate just starting her career, her eyes filled with fear and confusion. Seeing Ivy, Celeste was reminded of her younger self when she first moved in with the Hawthornes, so she took extra care of her. She even introduced Ivy to Ethan and Caleb. But before long, Ivy had become Ethan's assistant and the object of Caleb's affection. Celeste had once mentioned wanting to be Ethan's assistant, but he had refused, saying their relationship would cause office gossip. Yet, he had allowed Ivy to become his assistant, and she had held the position for a year. Caleb started hanging around the TV station every day just to catch a glimpse of Ivy, even neglecting his beloved basketball. In the past year, it had become common for both of them to blame Celeste for Ivy's sake. So, Celeste wasn't particularly hurt. It was only seeing the picture of her grandparents that made her eyes well up. "Grandpa, Grandma, I miss you so much." Celeste rubbed her eyes and didn't linger. She stood up and walked out. There was somewhere she needed to go. Chapter 2, Celeste drove to an old neighborhood. Just as she parked her car, texts from Ethan and Caleb came through. "Why did you leave without eating a single bite?" "Celeste, that was incredibly rude." "Celeste, I finally managed to calm Ivy down. You need to come back right now or she'll get upset again." Celeste rolled her eyes, turned off her phone screen, and got out of the car. "Auntie Miller, I'm here." Celeste walked into a small diner, wiping a bit of grease from the table. "Celeste, you're here the usual?" This little restaurant was the place her grandparents loved to take her and her brother. Celeste had known hardship as a child. How could she possibly look down on the restaurant Ivy had chosen? Thinking of Ethan and Caleb, bewitched by Ivy, Celeste just felt tired. "Cal and Ethan didn't come with you?" Celeste just nodded, and seeing that, Mrs. Miller didn't ask any more questions. A short while later, Mrs. Miller brought Celeste her food, along with a small cake. "I had a feeling you'd come today, so I prepared this early." "Happy birthday, Celeste." With tears in her eyes, Celeste thanked Mrs. Miller. Her phone, sitting on the table, buzzed incessantly. It was Ethan calling. "Celeste, where are you? Get back here right now. Don't disrespect Ivy's kind gesture. I appreciate the thought, but you guys can go ahead and eat. After all, every dish on that table is something Ivy likes." Celeste replied coldly and hung up. Ethan had the phone on speaker, so Caleb heard what Celeste said. Caleb looked at the table full of food, and his expression shifted slightly. "There really isn't anything here that Celeste likes to eat." Ethan frowned, feeling a pang of guilt. Seeing this, Ivy immediately started crying again. "It's all my fault. I was only thinking about ordering my favorite dishes and didn't consider Celeste. I just wanted her to try them too." At the sight of Ivy's tears, any trace of guilt Ethan and Caleb felt was washed away. "Ivy, how could it be your fault? You were just trying to share with Celeste. Don't cry." Ethan tenderly wiped away Ivy's tears. Caleb handed her a tissue and picked up a piece of food with his chopsticks. "That's right, Ivy. My sister is just a picky eater. I love this. Yeah, I love it too." After making Ivy laugh, Ethan and Caleb both breathed a sigh of relief. The three of them were enjoying themselves, having completely forgotten about Celeste. But after hanging up the phone, Celeste had lost her appetite. "What's wrong?" Mrs. Miller came over to comfort her. Did Cal and Ethan not come because of that, Miss Moss? Celeste looked up at Mrs. Miller in confusion. Mrs. Miller had no choice but to sit down across from her, her expression grim. They've brought a young woman with the last name Moss here a few times. I just assumed it was because you were busy. Celeste understood immediately. No wonder the two of them hadn't come here with her recently. It was because of Ivy. This was supposed to be their secret spot, yet they had brought a fourth person here without her permission. Don't think about it. Today is your birthday. You should be happy. Seeing Mrs. Miller trying so hard to cheer her up, Celeste's tears finally began to fall. Thank you, Auntie Miller. I feel much better. If you're ever unhappy, you can always come here, Mrs. Miller said, lovingly wiping Celeste's tears. I'm planning to leave. Leave? Where are you going? Abroad, and I'm not coming back. Auntie Miller, please don't tell them, Celeste said, looking at Mrs. Miller with earnest eyes. But if you go all by yourself, will you be able to take care of yourself? Mrs. Miller nodded, but she was still worried. It was already dark when Celeste left Mrs. Miller's restaurant. She turned on her phone and saw a photo Ivy had sent her a picture of the three of them together. Celeste casually turned her phone off, tossed it onto the passenger seat, and started the car to go home. Chapter 3. After they started working, Celeste, Ethan, and Caleb had all moved in together. As she walked up to her bedroom on the second floor, she noticed a light on in the guest room next door, which had been empty for a long time. Celeste called the housekeeper over to ask, "Hasn't that room been vacant for a while?" Mr. Hawthorne and Mr. Gardner said a friend was coming to stay, so we just prepared it today. Celeste then remembered a conversation from a week ago when Ethan had brought it up at the dinner table. Ivy can't find a place to live right now. I was thinking of letting her stay here for a couple of days. Even Caleb had chimed in, Celeste, this house belongs to Ethan. Celeste hadn't said anything at the time, and the conversation ended without a resolution, so she had forgotten about it. She never expected that Ivy would be moving in so soon. Out of sight, out of mind. She walked into her own room. It didn't matter, she would be gone soon anyway. They could do whatever they wanted. The next day, Celeste opened her bedroom door and saw Ivy standing there. Seeing that they were alone, Ivy stepped forward, her eyes full of provocation. Did you have a nice birthday yesterday? Does it bother you that I'm living here now? Yesterday, I mentioned I'd never driven before, and Caleb immediately bought me a car. And Ethan took me shopping at the Hawthorne family's department store. After all, I needed to be compensated for you rejecting my kind gesture. Celeste looked at Ivy's smug face, not wanting to get entangled with her. She tried to walk past her and go downstairs, but Ivy's sharp, cruel voice rang in her ear. It must be nice to have such useful grandparents. Too bad they didn't last long, but at least they managed to set you up for life before they kicked the bucket. Celeste's eyes were bloodshot as she glared at Ivy, having just slapped her across the face. Ivy clutched her cheek and immediately burst into tears. Celeste, what are you doing? Celeste, the voices of Ethan and Caleb, filled with rage and disbelief, came from behind her. At that moment, Celeste was so enraged by Ivy's words that she had lost all reason. Before Celeste could finish, Ivy ran to Ethan and Caleb, clutching her face. Celeste is still angry with me. She doesn't want me to live here. I should just leave. How could Ethan and Caleb bear to see Ivy so wronged? Celeste, I know you don't like Ivy, but I never thought you would actually hit someone, Ethan said, his eyes filled with contempt. She insulted my grandparents. Why shouldn't I hit her? Celeste clutched her chest, struggling to breathe. How could Ivy say such things? She could tolerate her stealing her fiancé and her brother, but she would absolutely not allow her to slander her grandparents. Celeste saw Ivy nestled in Ethan's arms, giving her a triumphant smile, and was about to lunge forward. Caleb glanced at Ivy, and without a second's hesitation, blocked Celeste. Celeste, Ivy isn't that kind of person. Even if you don't want her living here, you can't use Grandma and Grandpa as an excuse. Caleb's words were like a bucket of ice water poured over Celeste, chilling her to the bone. You're saying I'm using Grandma and Grandpa as an excuse. Celeste stared at Caleb in shock, then let out a laugh, repeating in disbelief. You're saying I'm using Grandma and Grandpa as an excuse? Ivy doesn't know anything about our past. Celeste, stop making a scene. Celeste shoved Caleb away and looked at them both. You don't believe me? Caleb is right. Ivy doesn't know anything. Stop being unreasonable and apologize to her. Celeste, hitting someone is wrong no matter what. Apologize to Ivy, and then can't the four of us just get along? Utterly disappointed, Celeste stopped looking at them, turned around, went back to her room and locked the door. She could still hear Ivy outside, adding fuel to the fire, crying about how wronged she was, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Chapter 4. By the time Celeste had calmed down, Ivy and the other two were long gone. There was a plate of food left for her on the dining table, with a note beside it in Ethan's handwriting. Mom and Dad want to discuss our wedding plans. Come to the main house tonight. Stop being angry with Ivy. Be good. This was Ethan's habit. Whenever they argued, he would write her a letter to comfort her. He felt it was more sincere that way. But now, looking at it, Celeste only saw hypocrisy. He was talking about discussing their wedding, but what about Ivy? Celeste crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it in the trash. When Celeste arrived at the TV station, she went straight to her boss's office. Chief D, you were looking for me. Your proposal was approved. You can start preparing for next week's interview, Diane Davis said, handing Celeste a stack of files. And Diane pulled out another piece of paper, looking somewhat conflicted. I've approved your resignation, but are you sure you don't want to tell Mr. Hawthorne? Chief D, you know why, Celeste said with a forced smile. I suppose so. Ever since that Ivy Moss showed up, this whole place has been a mess. I don't know what Mr. Hawthorne is thinking. Diane sighed. So, what are your plans after you leave? I'm planning to go abroad. I'll figure out the rest when I get there, Celeste said, a look of relief on her face. Diane looked at Celeste with sympathy, but knew there was nothing she could say. I know a few people overseas. If you need anything, I can make some introductions for you. Thank you, Chief D. Celeste was genuinely grateful. This is your last interview with the company. Take care of your voice. Diane added a few more words of advice before letting Celeste go. On her way back to her desk, Celeste mentally ticked off the preparations she needed to make before leaving the country. Before her legal independence was finalized, the only thing left was the matter of her engagement to Ethan. The thought of it actually made her feel a little lighter. After all, Ethan's attention was entirely on Ivy now. He would probably agree, right? After work, Celeste got into Ethan's car, which was already waiting for her. Celeste, about this morning. As soon as she got in, Ethan brought up her conflict with Ivy. But her mind was completely focused on ending the engagement. She had no desire to argue about who was right or wrong with Ivy, so she took the initiative. I was impulsive this morning. There were better ways to handle it. Like recording the conversation, Celeste added silently, Celeste, I'm so glad you see it that way. If you and Ivy can get along, that's better than anything. Ethan's voice was filled with pleasure, and he reached over to take her hand. Celeste quickly continued, Ethan, are you in love with Ivy Moss? Ethan's expression changed for a split second. It's Caleb who, if you're in love with Ivy Moss, let's call off the engagement. Celeste had expected Ethan to agree with delight. But to her surprise, upon hearing her words, Ethan slammed on the brakes right in the middle of the road, causing the cars behind them to honk furiously. Amidst the blaring horns, Ethan came to his senses and started the car again. Celeste, what are you talking about? I will never call off our engagement. Why not? Why? Celeste, we've been together for so long. You know this, I love you. I've always wanted to marry you. Ethan's reply was earnest, but Celeste's heart turned cold. After Ethan's refusal, they drove the rest of the way in silence. Just as they were approaching the gates of the Hawthorne estate, Ethan received a phone call. Chapter 5. Ethan, Ivy's hurt. You need to come quick. Caleb's voice was anxious and panicked. But I'm supposed to with your sister tonight? You can talk about your things anytime. Ivy's in really bad shape right now. Caleb's voice suddenly rose. Caleb darling, don't call him, I'm fine. Ethan darling has something important to do today. Ivy's voice was weak. Of course, Celeste knew what she was up to. She sat in the passenger seat, waiting to see how Ethan would react. Ethan's face was troubled as he looked at Celeste. Celeste smiled brightly, grabbed her bag, and got out of the car. You should go see her. Seeing that Celeste agreed, Ethan didn't hesitate for a second. He restarted the car and sped off. Celeste watched the car disappear into the distance, her face expressionless. She took out her phone and dialed a number she had saved a long time ago. Hello, is this the Sterling Law Group? Celeste sat in the law firm's meeting room, waiting as the lawyer in front of her reviewed the documents. Miss Gardner, this engagement agreement is very much in your favor. If you wish to terminate it, you can do so unilaterally at any time." Hearing this, the weight on Celeste's chest finally lifted. "Then please help me terminate it unilaterally." "Of course. The termination documents should be drafted by next Monday. Would you like to pick them up, or should we mail them to you?" Celeste thought for a moment, then glanced at the date she had booked her flight. "In that case, could you please mail them to this address next Sunday?" By next Sunday, she should be on a plane out of the country. She looked forward to seeing Ethan's expression, though it was a shame she wouldn't be there to witness it. When Celeste got home, she saw Ethan's private doctor bandaging Ivy's wrist. Ethan and Caleb were hovering around Ivy, full of concern. They didn't even notice Celeste until she was close. "Celeste, I'm so sorry. I messed up your plans with Ethan, darling." Ivy struggled to sit up, her eyes glistening with tears. Ethan, full of pity, quickly helped her. "Nothing is more important than you being okay. You just get some rest." Caleb, however, watched the two of them with a dark, unreadable expression. "As long as you're all right, get some rest," Celeste said, not wanting to linger. She turned and headed for her room. Just as she reached her door, Caleb approached her. "Celeste." Celeste looked at him questioningly. "What is it?" "Celeste, you and Ethan should call off the engagement." Caleb's words were firm, but he couldn't bring himself to look at her. Celeste froze. "Why?" "Both Ethan and I like Ivy. She's very concerned about your engagement to him, and she keeps refusing to be with me because of it." Caleb seemed to have gathered a great deal of courage as he finally looked up. "Celeste, for my sake, stop clinging to Ethan." "Clinging to him?" Celeste let out a cold laugh. "Is that how you've always seen me?" "Isn't it true?" Caleb looked at her. "If you break off the engagement, I can compete with Ethan fairly, and then Ivy might agree to be with me." "You, ha," Celeste laughed, utterly infuriated by Caleb. Caleb lowered his head. "Caleb, it's true that we've received a lot of help from the Hawthorne family over the years, but I believe I haven't wronged anyone." Celeste stepped closer to him. "I took care of you, and the allowance I gave you came from the money Grandma and Grandpa left us. And now you say this to me. Ethan and I fell in love naturally. How did it become me forcing him to be with me in your eyes? How am I standing in the way of Ethan and Ivy? Why don't you say that Ivy is destroying my relationship with Ethan? If it weren't for the debt of gratitude for my grandfather, you and Ethan would never have been engaged in the first." Before Caleb could finish, Celeste's hand struck his face. Get out. After Caleb left, Celeste collapsed onto her bed, exhausted. She had never imagined that after their grandparents passed away, the brother she had cared for over a decade would think of her this way. Chapter 6. When Celeste woke up the next morning, the house was empty. She sent a text to Ethan and Caleb, reminding them that they were supposed to visit their grandparents' graves over the weekend. Then, Celeste went to the study to work on her interview script. As she turned on her computer, she didn't notice that the remote access software had also been activated. After finishing her script, she noticed a video file on her desktop. Puzzled, Celeste played the video. The timestamp showed it was from the previous night. The screen showed Ethan, Caleb, and Ivy. It was clear that both men were drunk. Ivy sat between them, glanced suddenly in the direction of the camera, and then spoke to Ethan. "Ethan, darling, I'm so sorry for keeping you from your important family meeting today. It wasn't a big deal. After all these years, everything that needs to be prepared is already done." Ethan slumped over the table, waving his hand dismissively. "But won't Celeste be upset? What does she have to be upset about? Whether we talk about it or not, the outcome is the same. I'm going to marry her." Ethan sat up and took another drink. "Well, you two do have an engagement agreement." "Ha, an engagement agreement. Because of that agreement, how many years has Celeste dragged me along? She's just taking advantage of the fact that I love her. She thinks no matter what she does, I'll still marry her." Ethan's tone suddenly changed, and he even started contradicting himself. "But why do you two have an engagement agreement in the first place?" Ivy sensed something was off with Ethan and quickly changed the subject. "Her grandfather saved me. Then her grandmother passed away not long after. I couldn't just watch her struggle like that. After all, it was because of me." "So, Ethan, darling, did you agree to marry Celeste to repay a debt of gratitude?" Ivy's question was highly suggestive. In his drunken haze, Ethan simply nodded. "My sister, she's always like that, always acting so high and mighty." Caleb didn't finish his sentence, but Celeste couldn't watch anymore. She closed the video. A moment later, her phone rang. It was Ivy. Celeste answered the call, simultaneously turning on the call recorder. "Did you see the video on the computer?" Ivy's triumphant voice came through. "What are you trying to do?" Celeste asked. "I just couldn't bear to see you kept in the dark. Do you know why Ethan wants to marry you now? Just because of a promise, he's willing to throw his whole life away, and you're the one to blame. Why is that fair? You weren't the one who saved him, but you're the one reaping all the benefits. Why is it that just because you were born a few minutes earlier, you get to control Caleb darling all the time? Caleb said you're clinging to Ethan, using the debt of gratitude as leverage. Is he wrong? Isn't that the truth? Why do you have everything? Can't you just disappear from Ethan and Caleb's lives? Oh, by the way, I saw your text. You drag Ethan Darling and Caleb Darling to visit that old man and old woman every year. Did you ever ask them if they wanted to go? But I guess that's normal. After all, it's because of your so-called grandparents that you get to live such a good life, isn't it? You just want to project this image of being a kind person, don't you? Do you have any idea how much of a hypocrite you are? Ethan and Caleb both said they're not going to visit the graves anymore. You can go play your little filial piety game by yourself. Ivy didn't care if Celeste responded. She just kept ranting on her end of the line. Celeste listened to Ivy's frantic outburst, simply replied, "How boring," and hung up. As if provoked, Ivy began bombarding Celeste's phone with messages. Chapter 7. Celeste left her phone, which was vibrating wildly, in the study. Since she knew Ethan and Caleb wouldn't be back for a while, she decided to use the opportunity to pack her things. Celeste pulled a cardboard box out of the storage room. It was filled with photos and gifts they had exchanged over the years. She initially wanted to burn the photos, but after a moment's thought, she got a pair of scissors instead. Celeste carefully cut herself out of every photo, placing the cutouts in a small box to take with her. She also picked out all the gifts she had bought that were in the box. As she passed by Ivy's room, Celeste paused. In the end, she quietly pushed open Ivy's door. Standing at the entrance, she could see that a lot of thought had gone into decorating the room. Just as Celeste was about to leave, she heard Ivy's voice. "What are you doing?" Celeste whipped around and was relieved to see that Ivy was alone. "Ethan and Caleb are downstairs," Ivy said, pushing past Celeste. She made no effort to hide her true nature as she walked straight into the room. "Why don't you come in and have a look? The closet is so full of clothes your brother bought me that it won't even close. See this bracelet? Look familiar. Ethan bought it for me at an auction for $3 million. He got angry when I told him I didn't want it." Ivy casually pointed to things around the room, flaunting Ethan and Caleb's affection for her. Looking at Ivy, Celeste felt an involuntary pang of bitterness. She didn't want to stay any longer. All she wanted was to go back to her room. But suddenly, Ivy grabbed her hand. While Celeste was still stunned, Ivy placed the bracelet in her palm. The next moment, the bracelet broke in her hand, its decorative charms scattering all over the floor. "Celeste!" Ethan's roar of anger brought Celeste back to her senses. Caleb also rushed over, putting his arm around Ivy and demanding, "Celeste, what are you doing?" "Celeste wanted this bracelet, but it has a special meaning to me, so I didn't want to give it to her. I never thought—" Ivy didn't finish her sentence, but Ethan and Caleb immediately filled in the blanks. "Celeste, even if Ivy didn't want to give it to you, you shouldn't have done that. This bracelet will be very difficult to repair," Caleb said, frowning in disapproval. Celeste was about to explain, but Ethan rushed forward and shoved her, sending her to the ground. "Celeste, I never knew you were so jealous. I'm so disappointed in you." "Ethan darling, Caleb darling, please don't blame Celeste. If I had known this would happen, I would have just given it to her." Ivy held onto each of them, her words meant to soothe them, but her eyes were full of triumph. A sharp pain shot through Celeste's palm. She didn't let it show on her face as she stood up and said coldly, "Ha, is that the kind of person you think I am? I would never take something that belongs to someone else. And I won't fight for someone who doesn't belong to me," Celeste added silently in her heart. After she spoke, she gave Ethan and Caleb one last cold look and returned to her room without looking back. Her hand had been cut by the scattered charms, and blood dripped from her fingers onto the floor. Both Ethan and Caleb saw it, but neither of them moved. Celeste had always been afraid of pain, Even a small scrape as a child would make her cry for a long time. But her reaction now left both of them feeling uneasy. Maybe getting hurt will teach her a lesson. Then she won't bully you anymore, Ethan said to Ivy, though his brow furrowed slightly at the thought of Celeste's hand. My sister is strong. A little cut like that is nothing, Caleb said, forcing down his own worry and trying to reassure himself. But the sound of Celeste's door slamming shut still struck a heavy blow to both their hearts. Chapter 8. As expected, Ethan and Caleb didn't show up on the weekend. Celeste wasn't angry. She took a black coat from her closet and drove to the cemetery alone. She brought her grandparents' favorite foods and knelt before their gravestones, gently wiping them clean. Grandpa, Grandma, Celeste is here to see you. I didn't raise Caleb well. You won't blame me, will you? I don't want to marry Ethan anymore, and I'm planning to change my name and leave. I won't be able to visit you often anymore. I'm sorry, but Grandpa, Grandma, you haven't visited me in my dreams even once. That makes me sad too. Looking at her grandparents' photos, Celeste finally broke down and cried. Grandpa, Grandma, I miss you so much. Snow began to fall from the sky. Celeste sat there in the snow for a long time, until she was so cold she couldn't feel anything. Only then did she leave the flowers she was holding in front of the gravestones and reluctantly departed. When Celeste returned to the villa, she found Ethan and Caleb watching a movie with Ivy. Seeing Celeste dressed in black, they finally remembered what day it was. Celeste, why didn't you call us? Celeste, Ethan and Caleb stood before Celeste, their faces filled with guilt, at a loss for what to do. Celeste glanced at Ivy, who looked completely unconcerned, and took off her coat, which was still cold from the outside. You didn't want to go, so why would I ask you? With that, Celeste went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, casually placing her phone on the dining table. Ethan and Caleb both followed her. Celeste, Grandma and Grandpa were so good to me. How could I not want to go? Celeste, do you have some misunderstanding about me? They were my grandparents. How could I not want to see them? Celeste put down her glass and looked at Ivy, knowing she had been tricked. But it didn't matter anymore. If you wanted to go, it's not too late now. What's the use of telling me here? Ethan and Caleb were about to say more. Just then, Celeste's phone on the table lit up. It was a text message from the law firm. Ethan and Caleb saw the message and looked up at Celeste in unison. Why are you contacting a law firm? Ethan asked, suspicious. Celeste picked up her phone. It was still locked, so fortunately they hadn't seen the full message. Celeste lied. A friend of mine has some legal questions and asked me to help. About what? Caleb pressed. At that moment, Ivy let out a series of loud sneezes. Distracted by their concern for Ivy, Ethan and Caleb lost interest in questioning Celeste further. Celeste watched them fussing over Ivy, looking for medicine, shook her head, and went back to her room. The lawyer sent the documents Celeste had requested. After she confirmed them, the firm replied quickly. Miss Gardner, if you confirm there are no issues, the firm will draft the official documents tomorrow and mail them to you on Friday. Thank you. I appreciate you handling this for me on a weekend. After thanking the lawyer, Celeste lay down on her bed. She stared at the ceiling. She had quit her job, ended her engagement, and once her legal independence and new ID arrived, she could leave. Next week, she would go back to the office for her final interview, and then she could leave Ethan and Caleb behind for good. Celeste let out a long breath. Soon, she would be free soon. Chapter 9. For some reason, Ivy had been unusually quiet these past few days. Celeste was happy for the peace. She spent her days reviewing her interview script and handling handover tasks. The days passed quickly, and soon it was the day of Celeste's interview. Celeste, good luck today, Diane patted Celeste's shoulder. The guest told me she's really looking forward to this interview. Celeste smiled and picked up her water bottle. I'm looking forward to it too. There were 10 minutes until the interview. Celeste was a little nervous and opened her water bottle, just wanting to wet her throat. But the moment the water touched her lips, Celeste's expression changed, and she began to cough violently. The water bottle fell to the floor, and Celeste's face turned bright red as she struggled for air. Celeste, what's wrong? Diane quickly patted Celeste's back and picked up the fallen bottle, but Celeste couldn't answer. Peach juice, Diane sniffed the contents of the bottle, and her face went pale. Call an ambulance, hearing Diane's words, Celeste tried to control her coughing, but it was useless. She grabbed Diane's arm, her eyes pleading. Forget the interview, you're allergic to peaches. Your life is more important. Diane ignored Celeste's pleas and insisted on getting her into the ambulance. By the time Celeste was in the ambulance, her heart rate was already abnormal. Diane sent a staff member to go with her while she rushed back to deal with the aftermath. Just then, Ivy appeared. "Chief D, what happened to Celeste? It's none of your business." Diane was already furious at the sight of Ivy. If it weren't for her, Celeste wouldn't have resigned. But Ivy grabbed Diane's arm. "I can do Celeste's interview." Celeste prepared for so long, "I've only seen the latest script once." "What can you do?" Diane didn't want to argue. She frowned, shook off Ivy's hand, and tried to leave. But Ivy began reciting Celeste's interview script verbatim. Diane stared at Ivy, and in an instant, she understood everything. "That peach juice? What peach juice? The interview is about to start. Besides me, you can't find anyone else to fill in, can you?" The smile on Ivy's face was jarring, but Diane knew it was true. She couldn't find a replacement right now, so she had no choice but to agree. She glanced at Ivy's outfit, her eyes filled with contempt. "It looks like you've been prepared for this for a while. Go on." Ivy smiled triumphantly and threatened Diane, "You'd better not let anyone else know, or you won't be able to keep your job." Diane was livid. "Aren't you afraid you'll kill someone?" "Chief D, what are you talking about?" "I have to go prepare for the interview," Ivy said, her tone even more arrogant. Diane knew that Ivy had become spoiled and arrogant. For a moment, she was actually glad that Celeste had resigned. As she had wished, Ivy took Celeste's place in the interview chair, her expression proud. "Where's Celeste?" Ethan suddenly appeared behind Diane. Diane turned to see both Ethan and Caleb looking at her questioningly. Celeste had an allergic reaction. How could she be so careless? Ethan frowned, his tone tinged with blame. "She's a grown woman. Doesn't she know what she can and can't eat?" "Ivy had to come and save the day," Caleb said, his eyes full of admiration as he watched Ivy. Diane secretly rolled her eyes and ignored them. After the interview, Diane rushed to the hospital to see Celeste. "How are you?" "The doctor said the peach juice was almost pure. If I had gotten here any later, I could have suffocated." Celeste looked much better, but the red marks on her face were still alarming. "Chief D, I'm sorry. I must have grabbed the wrong bottle. How did the interview go?" "It wasn't your fault at all. Ivy switched your water." Diane was furious just thinking about Ivy. "It seems she also stole your script. She ended up doing the interview in your place." Celeste looked up in shock. Thinking about the strange remote access on her computer and Ivy's behavior over the past few days, she laughed at her own expense. "I never thought she had it in her." "Don't be too upset. The guest said she'd be happy to work with you again in the future," Diane said, trying to comfort her. Celeste gave Diane a reassuring smile. "It was my own carelessness. I'm just sorry for causing you so much trouble. It's not like you did it on purpose. Now that I think about it, it's a good thing you resigned. Before I came here, I asked Mr. Hawthorne and your brother if they wanted to come see you." Diane looked at Celeste and sighed sympathetically. "Mr. Hawthorne and your brother said you have allergic reactions all the time and went to dinner with Ivy. They didn't even plan on visiting you." "It's okay, I'm used to it." Diane had other things to attend to, so after sitting with Celeste for a while, she left. "Celeste, get some rest for a couple of days. We were lucky Ivy was there to step in for you today. When you're better, you need to come back and thank her properly." "Celeste, how could you be so careless? It's a good thing Ivy is so capable. I'll stay with her for a couple of days. You take care of yourself." Celeste looked at the messages from Ethan and Caleb, a cold smile forming on her lips. She stayed in the hospital for another day before checking out. She had already received her new household registration and ID card. That day, she canceled all her accounts and her phone number, replacing them with her new identity. While Ethan and Caleb were out of the house, she secretly went home to get her luggage, leaving Caleb's household registration book in his room. Then, without a trace of nostalgia, she left the villa and got into a taxi headed for the airport. In the car, she received a notification from the law firm that her documents had been mailed. Celeste looked back one last time at the home where she had lived for nearly 10 years. From now on, she was Celeste Knight. Chapter 10. Ethan and Caleb had taken Ivy on a trip out of state for several days and hadn't once visited Celeste in the hospital. It wasn't until they suddenly realized they hadn't been able to contact Celeste for many days that panic set in. They left Ivy at the hotel and rushed back home. On the way, Ethan drove frantically while Caleb kept trying to call Celeste's phone. It's no use. Still can't get through. Yesterday it said her phone was off, but today it says the number is no longer in service. Caleb's face was etched with anxiety as he stared at the red exclamation mark next to her name in his messaging app. Do you think something happened to my sister? Don't think like that. Nothing could have happened. She's had allergic reactions before. A couple of days in the hospital and she's fine, right? Ethan tried to reassure Caleb, but the sweat on his forehead betrayed his own nervousness. But she blocked both of us. Celeste, is probably just throwing a tantrum. It's happened before, hasn't it? Yeah, whenever we ignored her for Ivy. Caleb's words instantly dropped the temperature in the car to freezing. She was the one who wasn't careful, and Ivy was the one who saved the day. There's nothing wrong with us spending a couple of days with her. We'll just have to coax Celeste a bit when we get back. Ethan unconsciously sped up, and Caleb, his face full of worry, nodded. The moment Ethan parked the car at the hospital, Caleb threw open the door and bolted. When Caleb came running out of the hospital, he collided with Ethan, who was just getting out. He grabbed Ethan's arm and started pulling him away. My sister was discharged. Let's go home. Call the housekeeper and ask if Celeste is home, Ethan said, slapping his forehead in frustration as he got back into the car. Right, why didn't I think of that? Caleb quickly pulled out his phone. After hanging up, Caleb's tone was more relaxed, but his brow was still furrowed. The housekeeper said my sister went out 2 days ago, said she was going on a trip for a couple of days. Then maybe the signal is just bad. Maybe. They tried to soothe their own unease, and the car fell into silence. Did she say where she was going? Ethan broke the quiet, a sense of dread growing in his chest. I still feel like something is wrong. She didn't say. But I'm getting scared too, Caleb said, his legs shaking uncontrollably as he tried to ease his anxiety. When they finally arrived home, they saw Celeste's ID card on the entryway table. Celeste's ID is here. Does that mean she's back? Ethan picked it up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Caleb also felt a sense of relief. He took off his shoes and walked inside, calling out, Celeste! But they searched the entire house and couldn't find any sign of her. Maybe she just went out to buy something, Ethan said, standing at the door of Celeste's bedroom and looking at Caleb. But the empty room was destroying what little hope they had left. Caleb walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. Her clothes are gone. There's nothing here. Do you think Celeste moved out because of Ivy? It's possible. She never liked Ivy, Caleb said, walking out of the room, still searching desperately. But there was no trace of Celeste anywhere in the house. But even if she moved out, she'd have to come back for her ID, right? Ethan followed Caleb, analyzing the situation with a frown. My sister, Caleb's words caught in his throat. Ethan looked at him, confused. Caleb was standing in his own room, staring down at something in his hands. Ethan hurried in and followed Caleb's gaze. It was a household registration book. He took it from him. What's wrong? This, Ethan's voice trailed off. On the document where Celeste's name should have been, there was now only Caleb's. What happened? Ethan stared at the document in shock, the question escaping his lips. Chapter 11. My sister has disowned me. Tears were already streaming down Caleb's face. She legally separated herself from our family registry. Why? Ethan refused to believe it. He snatched the document, desperately searching for Celeste's name. Celeste cares about you so much. How could she bear to do this? My sister told me that if I ever hurt her deeply, she would do this. Caleb collapsed to the floor, completely devastated. She must have been heartbroken. I said so many hurtful things to her, because of Ivy Moss. Hearing Caleb's words, a wave of panic washed over Ethan. I did too. So? Just then, the doorbell rang. The sound seemed to jolt Caleb, and he pushed past Ethan and ran downstairs. Celeste, but Ethan, as if he already knew the outcome, moved towards the door with heavy steps. Caleb threw the door open, only to find a strange man standing outside. Hello, are you Mr. Ethan Hawthorne? The man asked. Seeing that it wasn't who he was expecting, Caleb leaned against the doorframe, his spirits seemingly gone. Ethan stood a short distance from the door, hesitant to approach. The man at the door, seeing that no one was responding, glanced at the file in his hand. This is a document for Mr. Ethan Hawthorne. I believe I'm at the right address. That's me, Ethan said, finally stepping forward to take the file. The letterhead was from the Sterling Law Group. Is this? Seeing the logo, a terrible premonition crept into Caleb's mind as he looked at Ethan. It's the law firm that sent Celeste the text that day. Ethan nodded, his hands trembling as he opened the file. The words unilateral dissolution of engagement immediately leaped out at him. Ethan was dazed. He steadied himself against the entryway cabinet, barely able to stand. Looking at the document in his hand, he let out a self-deprecating laugh. Your sister has disowned me too. Ethan knew, of course, how fragile their engagement agreement was. If Celeste didn't agree to it, she could dissolve it at any time. He just never thought she would actually be so ruthless. Caleb looked at Ethan, then at the file in his hands. Dissolution of engagement? In an instant, the blood rushed to Caleb's head as he remembered what he had said to Celeste. My sister really ended the engagement. Hearing Caleb's words, Ethan suddenly realized something. What did you say to her? Caleb swallowed nervously. Ivy, can you just spit it out? Seeing Caleb stammering, Ethan grabbed him by the collar in frustration. I confessed to Ivy. Did you know that? Caleb couldn't look Ethan in the eye. And so, Ivy, Caleb, recalling Ivy's words, suddenly changed his story. Ivy Moss rejected me. She said she had feelings for both of us, but because you were engaged, she couldn't choose me. Ha! Ethan shoved Caleb to the ground. So you went to Celeste and asked her to break up with me? I'm sorry. Caleb sat on the floor, his head bowed, lost in thought. I don't know what I was thinking back then. My mind was completely filled with Ivy Moss. Ethan slammed his fist against the wall in anger. Just then, Caleb spoke up. But are you completely blameless? If you had treated my sister well enough, would she have ended the engagement? Ethan froze, staring at Caleb. It was clear that both of them were remembering their actions over the past few months. Chapter 12. After a long silence, Ethan grabbed his coat. I'm going to the office to find her. I'm coming with you. Ethan and Caleb arrived at Celeste's office, only to find it completely cleared out. Caleb grabbed a nearby employee. Where's Celeste Gardner? She resigned. Resigned? Who approved it? Why wasn't I told? Ethan slammed his hand on a desk, and only then did the employee notice him. Mr. Hawthorne, Chief D approved it. Ethan and Caleb exchanged a look and then strode towards Diane's office. Seeing Ethan and Caleb burst in, Diane's expression remained unchanged. Mr. Hawthorne, Caleb, have a seat. But Ethan walked straight up to her, planting his hands on her desk and demanding, Where is Celeste? Caleb stood behind him, frowning. She resigned. Getting the same answer, Ethan could only slam his fist on the desk to vent his anger. Who gave you the authority to approve her resignation without my permission? He yelled. Diane didn't rush to answer. She typed for a moment, then turned her monitor around. Your executive assistant, Ivy Moss, personally approved it. What, Mr. Hawthorne, you didn't know? Seeing Ethan's look of disbelief, Diane leaned back in her chair and said sarcastically, It seems Assistant Moss's authority has grown so much that she can even bypass the president. What are you talking about? Ethan glared at her. Exactly what I said. I told her this required your personal approval, but Assistant Moss informed me that she could make the decision. Diane shrugged. If you don't believe me, go ask her. Of course, Celeste was happy for you not to know, so I agreed. Aren't you afraid I'll fire you? Ethan was infuriated by Diane's attitude. Fire me? Then I don't want to work for a boss who allows another woman to bully his own fiancé. Diane slammed her hand on the desk and stood up, meeting Ethan's gaze. Bully? Ever since Ivy Moss became your assistant, she's been coming back here to cause trouble. If she wasn't deleting Celeste's prepared scripts, she was making Celeste do menial tasks, claiming you ordered it. I just don't get it. She's just an assistant. When did she become so powerful? She even stole Celeste's script to snatch her interview and replace the water in her bottle with peach juice. Do you have any idea that if Celeste had gotten to the hospital a moment later, she could have suffocated? But what did you two do? Not only did you not care about Celeste, you went off with Ivy Moss. I nearly threw up when I heard what you said back then. And now, you have the nerve to come here and ask me where Celeste went. One of you is her fiancé, the other is her brother, and neither of you knows. How would I know? Diane, who had always been fond of Celeste, finally unleashed all her pent-up anger at the two men standing before her. Ethan and Caleb were so stunned by her tirade that they didn't know how to react. Finally, Ethan muttered, Suffocated? What Ivy Moss did was attempted murder after being Celeste's assistant for so long. How could she not know what Celeste is allergic to? What was her real intention with that peach juice? If you want to fire me, feel free. If you have no other business, I have work to do. I won't keep you. Diane made it clear they were not welcome. As Ethan and Caleb left her office, they were still in a state of shock. How could Ivy Moss dare? Ethan gritted his teeth in anger. My sister was almost killed, Caleb said, terrified by the thought. Ethan patted Caleb on the back, his voice filled with exhaustion. Where else could Celeste have gone? We have to keep looking. Caleb thought for a moment. Auntie Miller's restaurant. They looked at each other, a flicker of hope in their eyes, and both ran out of the building. Chapter 13. Diane, don't be angry. I'm fine now, aren't I? After Ethan and Caleb left, Diane had called Celeste. You have no idea. Just looking at those two makes me so angry. How dare they have the nerve to come to me looking for you? Celeste put down her coffee and chuckled softly. Thank you, Chief D. What for? How are you settling in the U.S.? Diane asked, rubbing her temples, her voice softening. It's great. No one knows me here. I just wake up and wander around every day, Celeste said, stretching. Her voice was lazy and relaxed. Well, you be safe on your own. If you decide you want to work, I can help you find someone, Diane said, relieved to hear Celeste sounding so at ease. Celeste playfully charmed Diane, and they chatted for a little while longer before hanging up. Sitting in a coffee shop filled with white people, Celeste still felt a little lonely. Talking with Diane had been a great comfort. Meanwhile, Ethan and Caleb had arrived at Mrs. Miller's restaurant. Auntie Miller Caleb rushed into the diner. Has my sister been here? Mrs. Miller came out from the kitchen. Seeing Ethan and Caleb, her expression soured. Have a seat. Celeste said you would definitely come and left something for you with me. Mrs. Miller then took out a manila envelope and handed it to Caleb. Your sister left this for you. Caleb looked at the envelope, which was identical to the one Ethan had received, and hesitated to take it. Mrs. Miller placed it directly on the table. You too, really? I'm not an educated woman and I'm not good with words, but my heart aches for Celeste. On her birthday, she came here all by herself to eat a bowl of noodles. You two were with another woman, weren't you? How could you do that? Ethan and Caleb hung their heads, unable to look Mrs. Miller in the eye. And I have to say, I don't think that Miss Moss is a good person. I saw her sending Celeste a lot of messages. The look in Celeste's eyes at that moment, it broke my heart to see. As she spoke, Mrs. Miller wiped away a tear. I watched you and your sister grow up. Your grandparents passed so suddenly. I thought it was a good thing that the Hawthorne family could help you, but who would have thought? Ethan, I'm practically family to Celeste. Seeing you treat her like this makes me so angry. But there's nothing I can say, so I just have to worry. I'm sorry, Ethan said, his voice muffled. Cal, you and your sister have relied on each other for so long. How could you abandon her for another woman? Celeste is the only family you have left in this world. Forget everyone else. How could you break her heart like that? Listening to Mrs. Miller's words, Caleb was already sobbing uncontrollably, wiping his tears away with his hands. Auntie, do you know where Celeste went? Ethan asked, seeing that Caleb couldn't speak. It was the question that weighed most heavily on both their minds. Celeste only told me she was going abroad. She didn't say where. Mrs. Miller pushed the envelope towards Caleb again. Take a look. It's what your sister left for you. Only then did Caleb find the courage to pick up the file. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope. Affidavit of voluntary relinquishment of property inheritance rights. When Caleb read those words, he could no longer hold back and broke down completely. Celeste said that even though she's angry with you, she still wanted to leave your grandparents' house. She also said she won't be able to come back often and asked you to visit your grandparents for her from now on. Mrs. Miller wiped her own tears as she relayed the message, which only made Caleb cry harder. Ethan's eyes were also red. He asked tentatively, Did Celeste leave anything for me? Chapter 14. Mrs. Miller looked at Ethan and sighed. Celeste said she's not someone who repays kindness with obligation. She doesn't want you to be with her, out of a sense of duty. She also said she's disappointed and doesn't love you anymore, so she ended the engagement to set you free. When Ethan and Caleb left Mrs. Miller's restaurant, it had started to snow. Ethan, you should go back. I want to go home and see the old house, Caleb said, sniffling, his voice trembling as he tried to control it. Ethan knew, of course, that Caleb was talking about the place they had lived as children. "I'll go with you. I want to see the place where Celeste grew up too." Caleb didn't refuse, simply turning and walking into the adjacent neighborhood. "You haven't been back much since you and Celeste moved in with the Hawthorns, have you?" "My sister still came back sometimes. She told me not to tell you so you wouldn't overthink it." Caleb walked ahead, explaining, "Because if I told you, you would think of Grandma and Grandpa." "I know." Ethan understood Celeste's intentions. "Caleb, I will find Celeste, no matter where she goes. Not only do we have to find her, but I'm going to make Ivy Moss pay." At the mention of Ivy, both of their breathing grew heavy. Ethan said viciously, "After what she did to Celeste, I won't let her get away with it." Caleb opened the door to the old house. The interior was just as it had always been. "What's this doing here?" While Caleb was taking off his shoes, Ethan spotted a cardboard box in the room. They were both all too familiar with that box. It held all their memories together. Ethan and Caleb rushed over, but neither of them dared to open it. "What do you think it means that Celeste brought it here?" Ethan's gaze on the box was dark and unreadable. "She must have known we would come," Caleb said, reaching out to open the box. "Whatever it is, we have to accept it. We were the ones who were wrong in the first place." Even though Caleb said this, when he saw the photos inside, he still froze for a moment. Ethan also looked into the box. "Celeste cut herself out of all of them. Does she really not want to be with us that much?" He picked up a photo from the box. Celeste was missing from every single one. "It's like she's trying to carve herself out of our memories." Caleb gently traced the edges of each photo, but every memory was still so vivid. Celeste was only a few minutes older than him, but he had always relied on her so much. But now, his sister was angry with him, had abandoned him, and wouldn't even leave him with the memories. Ethan sat on the floor and cried. He hadn't cried when he found out Celeste was gone, nor when she broke off their engagement. But seeing the cut-up photos, he wept. Because he knew how final her decision was, and because he was terrified. He was terrified that Celeste would truly disappear from his life, just like she had from these pictures. "The gifts Celeste bought are all gone too. Yeah, her favorite doll is missing." Ethan and Caleb sat dejectedly on the floor like two soulless shells. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. He took it out. Ivy Moss's name was displayed on the screen. "It's Ivy Moss." Ethan frowned, as if the mere mention of her name disgusted him. "It's time to make her pay," Caleb said coldly. Ethan looked at Caleb and answered the phone. Ivy's voice came through the receiver. The voice he once found sweet now sounded utterly nauseating. "You should come back soon. Caleb and I both miss you." "I'm sure you do." Ethan and Caleb looked at each other and smiled. Chapter 15. "Celeste, how are you doing in the U.S.?" One day, Diane called Celeste again. "I've settled in," Celeste said as she made breakfast. "Do you remember Julian Croft?" "I do." Celeste thought for a moment and remembered who he was. The Croft family was a well-known and powerful business dynasty in the city. Julian Croft was the most outstanding heir of his generation. Celeste had only met him once at a charity ball. He's also in the U.S. right now. He's planning to start a news agency, and when he heard you were here, he wanted to know if you'd be interested. Of course, I was just about to start looking for a job. Then I'll give him your contact information, and you two can connect. Diane hung up excitedly. A few minutes later, Celeste received a call from Julian. "Miss Gardner, or I suppose I should call you Miss Knight now, hello." Julian's voice was cheerful and warm, the kind that could put anyone at ease. "Call me Celeste. I'm still not quite used to my new name." "Then I'll call you Celeste," Julian decided quickly. "Where are you living now? I can come by and we can talk." Celeste gave Julian her address, only to discover that they were next-door neighbors. A short while later, there was a knock on her door. Julian was wearing a white sweater, holding up a basket of fruit for her to see. "I just moved in yesterday. I had no idea you lived here too." "I was out all day yesterday, so I didn't notice any new neighbors." Julian's easygoing nature made Celeste feel comfortable right away. Celeste welcomed him in and then went back to the kitchen. "I was just making breakfast. We can eat while we talk." "Then let me help," Julian said, rolling up his sleeves and joining her in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Ivy Moss had just returned to Ethan's villa to find him and Caleb sitting on the sofa, waiting for her. She put down her shopping bags and went to embrace them. But Caleb stopped her, and Ethan got up to lock the door. Seeing their serious expressions, Ivy grew nervous. "What's wrong?" "Celeste is gone," Ethan said, approaching her from behind. "Is Celeste upset about the interview?" Ivy, realizing it was about Celeste, reverted to her usual demeanor. "Is she unhappy that you two were with me?" Ivy took Ethan and Caleb's hands. "It's all my fault. I'll go talk to her. Where is she now?" Ivy chattered on, not noticing the dark expressions on Ethan and Caleb's faces. Ethan twisted his hand, gripping Ivy's wrist. "Ivy Moss, what have you done to Celeste all this time?" His grip was painful, and she couldn't break free. "Ethan, darling, what are you talking about?" Caleb grabbed her chin. "Stop pretending. Do you really think we're stupid?" A sense of unease grew in Ivy's heart, but she couldn't admit to what she had done. She had to keep playing dumb. "Ethan, darling, Caleb, darling, you're hurting me. It hurts." As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. In the past, the sight of her crying would have had Ethan and Caleb comforting her immediately. But this time, both of them were unmoved. "We were such fools. How did we ever fall for your tricks?" "Yeah, looking back now, your acting was pathetic. It's because of you that we hurt Celeste. It's all because of you. How could I have fallen for a woman like you? Besides giving my sister peach juice and stealing her interview, what else did you do?" Caleb shoved Ivy to the floor and grabbed her by the collar, demanding answers. Ethan simply stood by with his arms crossed, watching her coldly. Ivy looked at the two men before her and knew she was finished. Chapter 16. "Caleb, darling, what are you talking about? I would never do those things. You must have misunderstood me." Ivy knelt on the floor, her face a mask of innocence. Seeing her act, Ethan let out a cold laugh and turned to grab a stack of files. "Then see for yourself what this is." With that, Ethan threw the files at Ivy's face. Ivy dazedly picked up the papers from the floor. They contained not only her call logs with Celeste, but also a detailed record of everything she had done to her. She didn't know how Ethan had found out, but she had to admit his investigation was thorough. "Ethan, darling, this is all fake. I would never do something like this." Ivy grabbed Ethan's pant leg, still trying to argue. Ethan kicked her away and she scrambled over to Caleb. "Caleb, darling, you don't believe me either. You know me so well. You know what kind of person I am. Know you, I don't know you at all. How could I have ever thought that you were such a malicious woman?" Caleb grabbed Ivy by the collar, slapped her across the face, and cursed, "You murderer." Ivy was stunned by the slap. She clutched her face, tears instantly streaming down her cheeks, her expression one of utter shock. "You hit me, so what if I hit you? If I could, I would make you disappear from this world." As he spoke, Caleb's hands went straight for Ivy's throat. Ethan just stood by, watching coldly. Only when Ivy's face began to turn purple did Ethan stop Caleb. "That's enough. Keep her alive. When we find Celeste, we'll make her apologize in person." Caleb finally loosened his grip, but his hands remained on Ivy's neck. Ivy could finally breathe again, but she was terrified. She started screaming, "You two are insane. Do you think Celeste left because of me? Are you blameless?" Ivy struggled frantically, and in the chaos, her nails scratched Caleb's face. Caleb cried out in pain and threw her across the room. Ethan stepped forward and kicked her. "If it weren't for you, why would Celeste have left? What did we do wrong?" Ivy clutched her stomach, wiped the blood from her lip, and started to laugh. "As if it's all my fault, but you were the ones who believed everything I said without question. You were the ones who made Celeste unhappy every time." "What did I do? I just said a few words and drove a wedge between you. If you really loved Celeste, would you have been so easily manipulated by me?" Ivy lay on the floor, struggling to breathe, but every word she spoke was the truth. "You were the ones who didn't believe Celeste. You were the ones who let her be wronged. You were the ones who didn't visit her in the hospital. You two men, when things go wrong, you don't look at yourselves. You just find a woman to take it out on. What kind of men are you? A couple of useless madmen. You can't find Celeste, can you? Let me tell you, she even changed her name just to get away from you. And you want me to apologize when you find her. Don't make me laugh. Find her first." Having vented her fury, Ivy lay on the floor and laughed hysterically. "Changed her name?" Ethan grabbed Ivy by the hair. "How do you know that?" "Heck, you didn't care about what Celeste was doing all this time, did you? I had her followed. How else do you think I stole her script? How else did I switch her water? She was lucky to survive. If it had been just a little longer, she would be dead, you know. After all, it wasn't just peach juice." Chapter 17. "What did you say?" "What?" Caleb and Ethan's questions came out at almost the same time, a wave of fear washing over them. Otherwise, do you think a simple allergy would have been so severe? That other stuff wasn't easy to get, you know? There was even a hint of regret in Ivy's voice. She was lucky. Otherwise, you wouldn't just be unable to find her right now. Ha ha ha. You, Ethan, and Caleb were terrified by Ivy's crazed state. Seeing their expressions, Ivy laughed even more wildly. I was just too soft-hearted. Otherwise, you two might be crying over her dead body right now, but I should also thank you. Do you know why? You were the ones who let me get close to Celeste. After all, you were the ones who arranged for me to live next door to her. Oh, do you know how I did it? With the money and connections you gave me. Surprising, isn't it? The money you gave me was ultimately used to frame Celeste. If you call me a murderer, then you're my accomplices. Slap. Ethan struck Ivy hard across the face. You lunatic. Blood trickled from the corner of Ivy's mouth. Oh, right. I was the one who broke that bracelet. Celeste's hand was all cut up then, wasn't it? It looked so painful. You didn't even care about her. I wonder if she cried all by herself? Enough. Caleb lunged forward, his eyes bloodshot. He raised his hand to strike her. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. He pulled it out and asked anxiously, "Did you find Celeste?" The answer from the other end of the line made Ethan smash his phone on the floor. Seeing this, Caleb stopped and quickly asked, "What's wrong?" But Ethan ignored him and walked straight to Ivy. Celeste changed her name. What did she change it to? Isn't the great Mr. Hawthorne all-powerful? Find out yourself. Ivy stuck her neck out and gave Ethan a cruel smile. Enraged, Ethan raised his hand and slapped her again. The blow left Ivy dazed for a moment. When she came to, she screamed at him, "Go ahead, kill me, see if you'll ever find out what Celeste changed her name to." Who else do you think can tell you now besides me? Caleb, who had been frozen in shock at the news that Celeste had really changed her name, finally reacted. Hearing Ivy's words, he quickly stepped in to stop Ethan. "Let's just lock her up for now." Ethan glanced at Caleb and had no choice but to nod in agreement. Together, they dragged Ivy down to the basement. "You can stay here for a couple of days. You'd better pray you're still useful." With that, they tied Ivy up. Seeing this, Ivy struggled even more frantically, screaming for help. Fearing someone might hear, Caleb quickly grabbed some tape and sealed her mouth shut. Ignoring her struggles, they locked her in the pitch-black basement. After they were done, Ethan irritably pulled out a cigarette, but Caleb snatched it from him. Caleb lit it and asked, "What's the situation?" They said she changed her name. With just her ID number, I can't find her with my current resources. Ethan took out another cigarette and lit it. "The only thing we can do is go back tomorrow and ask Mom and Dad for help." By now, both of them were physically and mentally exhausted. Without even changing their clothes, they collapsed on the sofa and fell asleep. And so, no one noticed the blinking red light coming from Ivy's bag, which had been dropped on the floor. Chapter 18. Early the next morning, Ethan and Caleb returned to the Hawthorne estate. "What are you two doing back? Where's Celeste? Why didn't she come with you?" Margaret Hawthorne welcomed them unhappily. But when she saw the looks on their faces, a sense of foreboding crept in. "What happened to Celeste?" "Mom, where's Dad?" Margaret had no choice but to lead them to the study. After hearing their story, Richard and Margaret Hawthorne were furious. "How could you two do this? I knew something was wrong when you didn't show up to discuss the wedding plans." After so many years, the Hawthornes had come to see Celeste and Caleb as their own children. Now, learning what Ethan and Caleb had done, they were beyond angry. "Didn't I tell you to stay away from that Moss woman?" Margaret poked Ethan's forehead, her face filled with rage. "I know I was wrong. I can't find Celeste anywhere now," Ethan said, letting his mother scold him, his expression dejected. "And your sister was so good to you. How could you, for some woman?" I was temporarily blinded. I'm so sorry to my sister. All I want now is to find her." Whenever Caleb mentioned Celeste, he couldn't stop his tears. "All right, what's done is done. You two need to do some serious soul searching and stay out of trouble. I'll see if I can get someone to help find Celeste." Richard Hawthorne rubbed his forehead, looking utterly exasperated. Hearing that their father had agreed to help find Celeste, Ethan and Caleb both looked up, their eyes filled with gratitude. "But let me be clear. If Celeste doesn't want to come back, neither of you is to bother her." Seeing their hesitation, Richard slammed his hand on the table, his voice full of authority. On this matter, my decision is final. After everything you've done wrong, do you really expect Celeste to just forget about it? Richard was about to say more when a file was sent to his phone. At the same time, there was a knock on the study door. Richard's secretary walked in, her steps hurried, as if something terrible had happened. And indeed, a moment later, Richard's expression changed. He grabbed a book from his desk and threw it at them. You two have really outdone yourselves. Now you're involved in false imprisonment. False imprisonment? Ethan and Caleb thought of Ivy, and their faces instantly paled. Ivy Moss? See for yourselves, Richard threw his phone to them. On the screen was a video of everything that had happened the night before. Except the video had been edited to look as if Ethan and Caleb had beaten Ivy and locked her in the basement simply to vent their anger. Dad, Ivy Moss almost killed Celeste. That's why Caleb and I were so angry. That's right, Mr. Hawthorne. This video has been maliciously edited. Ethan and Caleb explained anxiously. Regardless of the video, the fact is that you two assaulted someone and illegally detained them. The video was uploaded online this morning, and the police are already on their way. Ethan and Caleb collapsed onto the sofa. Forget about finding Celeste for now. You two are about to bring down the entire Hawthorne family with you. The day the video was released, the internet exploded. The Hawthorne family's stock plummeted. By the time Ethan and Caleb got home, the house was already surrounded by media and police. The police were leading Ivy out of the basement. Ivy, looking frail, leaned on an officer, sobbing to the media. When the reporters saw Ethan and Caleb, they swarmed them. Chapter 19. Mr. Hawthorne, do you have any comment on the video? Mr. Gardner, how will this incident affect your basketball career? Mr. Hawthorne, do you admit to illegally detaining Miss Moss? Mr. Hawthorne, there are rumors that you and Miss Moss had a special relationship. What really happened? Mr. Gardner, what is the relationship between the three of you? Why did you and Mr. Hawthorne do this? The questions gave Ethan and Caleb a headache. From a distance, they saw Ivy give them a triumphant smile, and they seethed with anger. Seeing that they were completely surrounded, the police stepped in to maintain order. We need to take them to the station for questioning. Please step back. Amid the chaos, Ethan and Caleb were taken to the police station, while Ivy was sent to the hospital for an injury assessment. When the media saw that Ethan and Caleb weren't talking, they all followed Ivy to the hospital, hoping to get some information from her. The Hawthorne family's TV station was highly influential, and as its new president, the handsome Ethan Hawthorne was always in the spotlight. Caleb's basketball team had a huge fan base, especially among young women. So, the video incident had a massive impact on both of them. For a time, their names dominated the trending topics online. The Hawthorne family was hit hard, and some shareholders had already threatened to pull their investments. Richard Hawthorne quickly stepped in to take control and find a way out of the crisis. Ethan and Caleb were detained for assault and false imprisonment. Online, the public went wild. No matter what Ivy Moss did, two grown men beating up a woman like that is just not okay. Exactly. Look at how badly she was beat. It's terrifying. I used to have a crush on Caleb Gardner. This is disgusting. Soon, a video of Ivy's interview was released. In it, Ivy was covered in bandages, her body bruised as she gave the interview through tears. Hello everyone, I'm Ivy Moss. Thank you all for your concern. I really thought I was going to die in that dark basement. You all saved me. I'm just Mr. Hawthorne's assistant. He always valued my work and even arranged a place for me to live. Mr. Gardner was also very kind to me. I'm just a girl from a small town, and I thought I had met the benefactors of my life. But I never knew that Mr. Hawthorne's fiancé, Mr. Gardner's sister, Miss Gardner, didn't like me. I never expected that Miss Gardner would end her engagement with Mr. Hawthorne and just disappear. And then Mr. Hawthorne and Mr. Gardner took all their anger out on me. As she spoke, Ivy broke down in tears. After watching her interview, public opinion immediately shifted to sympathy for Ivy. Oh my God, I feel so bad for this beautiful young woman. It's true, all men are trash. That day, Richard Hawthorne visited Ethan and Caleb. What on earth is this Ivy Moss up to? Richard threw the video at them, his expression furious. Dad, that video must have been edited. Ivy admitted with her own mouth that she wanted to kill Celeste. If we can just find the original video, we can expose the truth about her. Easier said than done. I've had people look into it, and they can't find anything. You two have really ruined the Hawthorne family." Richard looked at them with disappointment. Visiting hours were soon over, and Richard had to leave. Before he left, he said, "Think carefully. Was there anything else unusual about her?" Chapter 20. Diane shared the news with Celeste, who was now living abroad, over a video call. "I can't believe they would do something like that. It's terrifying." Celeste watched the video, her brow furrowed. "Even though Ivy deserved it, those two were really brutal," Diane said. Seeing that Celeste wasn't saying anything, she finally asked, "What are you going to do?" "What can I do?" Celeste sighed. "I heard a rumor that the video isn't the full version," Diane said, lowering her voice. "Even if it's not complete, they still hit her. That's a fact." Celeste watched the video, her feelings a tangled mess. She disliked Ivy, and she was deeply disappointed in Ethan and Caleb, but seeing the three of them end up like this still pained her. "What's wrong?" Julian approached her from behind. They had grown much closer through their work together. Celeste frowned, not knowing how to explain. Diane sensed the subtle awkwardness between them and made an excuse to end the video call. Celeste looked at Julian, deliberating for a long time before finally meeting his gaze. "Julian, are you in love with me?" Julian had been waiting for Celeste to explain, but he never expected such a question. Why are you asking that?" Julian's face flushed slightly, and he couldn't look at her. "You probably know that I was once engaged to a member of the Hawthorne family." Before Celeste could continue, Julian interrupted her. "I am in love with you." Celeste looked up in shock. Julian was looking at her with such sincerity. "I also know what happened to you. I know everything." "Then you?" Celeste was surprised. "I came to the US for you. The truth is, I fell for you the first time we met at that charity gala. But I knew you were engaged, so I didn't want to interfere. I followed my family's arrangements and went abroad. By the time I returned, I found out everything that had happened, but you had already left the country. I looked for you for a long time and finally found out that you had changed your name and come to the US. Living next door to you was also part of my plan. These past few days have only strengthened my feelings for you." Julian's gaze was earnest, his tone firm. He reached out to take Celeste's hand, then pulled back. "But I don't know if you're still not over Ethan Hawthorne, so I never dared to say anything. I'm sorry, did I make you uncomfortable?" Celeste saw his every move, and a warmth spread through her chest. "I asked you that question because I was afraid of holding you back. My past is a mess, and you have nothing to do with it. I don't want to drag you into it." A wave of sadness washed over Celeste again, and she found it hard to look at Julian. "Celeste, I'm the one who wants to step into this. The reason I never said anything was because I was afraid of burdening you." Hearing her words, Julian quickly explained, "It's me who loves you. It's me who was afraid of putting you in a difficult position. It's me who hopes you'll let me into your messy life, and it's me who wants to be a part of it." Afraid that Celeste would say something else, the confession tumbled out of him. Listening to his confession, Celeste didn't know how to respond. "Actually, I know what's bothering you. When the video came out, I thought about dealing with it, but I was afraid I would be overstepping." Julian looked into Celeste's eyes. "Even though I didn't interfere much, I did a little digging. If you need me to do anything, I'm ready anytime." Celeste looked at Julian's nervous expression and felt a lump in her throat, unable to speak. Julian thought she was about to reject him, and the light in his eyes dimmed. "Don't feel pressured. If you haven't moved on yet, I can wait, but please don't push me away." By the end, Julian's voice was barely a whisper. "Julian, thank you for loving me." Chapter 21. Celeste's gentle, "Thank you," made the light in Julian's eyes fade completely. He couldn't bring himself to look at her. "I understand, I'm sorry." Julian started to turn away, but Celeste grabbed the corner of his shirt. "Julian, I'm sorry for dragging you into this because I love you too." Julian spun around abruptly, but Celeste kept her head down, unable to meet his gaze. Seeing her ears turn bright red, Julian's heart pounded in his chest. He joyfully pulled her into a hug. "Celeste, don't be sorry, it's my honor." "Julian, I'm not saying I love you just because I want your help." Celeste's voice was muffled as she buried her face in his chest. Julian laughed. "I know, don't worry. Even if it was because I'm useful, I'd still be happy." After they had confessed their feelings, Julian led Celeste to the sofa, took out his phone, and played a video. "This is the original video that I intercepted. It's true that Ethan and your brother assaulted Ivy and locked her in the basement. No one can change that. They did something wrong and they should face the consequences. I just want to know the truth." Celeste's hands clenched nervously. "But Caleb is my brother. What if there's still a chance for leniency?" "There is." Julian's voice eased Celeste's anxiety. "Ivy admitted with her own mouth that she wanted to kill you, and she acted on it. It just failed." "Kill me?" Celeste's eyes widened in shock. "The time she stole your interview, there was more than just peach juice in that water bottle." As he said this, Julian held Celeste tighter. "She almost killed you." Celeste recalled her condition at the time. If that were true, it would make sense. She was allergic to peaches, but it had never been that severe before. She patted Julian's back, trying to comfort him. "What do you want to do?" Julian asked her. "Release the original video. They are all at fault." Celeste's voice was calm. "Celeste, are you not going to help Ethan and the others?" Julian asked softly. Celeste shook her head. "We're in the news business. Our job is to report the facts. After that, let the law handle it. Besides, I lived with the Hawthorne family for so long, and his parents were very good to me. I just don't want to see them suffer." The next morning, Julian used his family's connections to release the original video online. Netizens immediately started buzzing. "The early bird gets the drama. This Ivy Moss is ruthless. I can't believe there's a twist to this story. If someone framed my fiancé like that, I'd be capable of murder too." Let's not just blame Ivy Moss. If Ethan and Caleb hadn't enabled her, things wouldn't have gotten this far. As the online discussion intensified, Richard Hawthorne seized the opportunity and quickly issued a public statement on behalf of his company. Ethan and Caleb also released apology videos one after the other. The company's market value took a huge hit, but luckily, this video saved us. When Richard visited the two of them, he was much more relaxed. "Dad, how did you find the video?" "It wasn't me, it was the Croft family." "The Croft family? Why would they help us?" "I don't know." Richard shook his head, thoughtfully recalling his conversation with the Crofts that morning. "How is Ivy Moss?" Caleb asked. "The police have her in custody. The person who released the video was her father. Apparently, she carried a hidden camera everywhere, trying to get leverage on you." Richard snapped back to the present at Caleb's question. "Leverage? For money, what else? You don't think she actually liked you, do you?" Richard rolled his eyes at them. "You two stay in here and reflect on what you've done." Richard was about to leave when Ethan called out to him. "Dad, is there still any way to find Celeste?" "I'll try," Richard sighed and left without looking back. Chapter 22. Ivy Moss was sitting in the police station, her injuries still healing, a fresh scab on her lip. "That video has to be fake, I never said those things." Ivy slammed her fists on the table, unable to believe that someone had found the complete video. "Our technical department has confirmed that there are no signs of tampering in this video. However, the video that was initially released shows clear evidence of post-production editing." The officer sitting across from her calmly laid out the evidence. "We also have your father in custody. He has confessed everything." "What father? What are you talking about?" "I'm an orphan." Ivy's eyes darted around in panic, but she still stubbornly denied everything. "Ivy Moss is your twin sister. You killed her out of jealousy and then threatened your father to help you cover it up, correct?" At the mention of that name, Ivy's pupils constricted, and she pressed her lips together. "Officer, what are you talking about?" Seeing that she was still being difficult, the officer slammed his hand on the table and shouted in anger. "Do you take us for fools? We have concrete evidence. What else do you have to say for yourself?" Ivy jumped in fright. Staring at the evidence before her, she finally broke down. "Why does everyone else get to have a better life than me? What's so wrong with just wanting to live a good life? You can save that for the judge." With that, Ivy was led away, still screaming hysterically as she was taken out. After learning that the Hawthorne family was out of trouble, Celeste stopped paying attention to Ethan and Caleb's situation. She was busy setting up the news agency with Julian. One day, as they were returning home, they saw someone standing at her door. "Mr. Hawthorne, what are you doing here?" Celeste hurried to greet him. When Richard saw Celeste, his eyes turned red. "Celeste, my dear, why didn't you let me know you were here?" "I'm sorry, I was just so angry with Ethan and Caleb." Celeste felt a pang of guilt. "Hello, sir, why don't we go inside?" Julian said, trying to ease the tension. Once they were inside, Julian made tea and then excused himself. Richard, sensing the connection between them, asked tentatively, "Was it Julian who helped with the video?" Celeste nodded. "Are you two together?" Richard asked again. "It happened after I came to the US." Celeste quickly explained, not wanting him to get the wrong idea. Richard nodded in understanding. "Ethan and Caleb will be out in about 2 weeks. I wanted to ask what your thoughts are first." Celeste looked at the white in Richard's hair. "Mr. Hawthorne, I'm not going back. I can't forgive them for what they did to me. The only reason I had Julian help was because I didn't want to see you suffer." "Those 2 boys know they were wrong," Richard tried to persuade her. "After all, the 3 of you grew up together. It's precisely because we grew up together that I realized how fragile our bond was, that any woman could come along and destroy it. Mr. Hawthorne, you don't need to convince me. I won't see them again. I was with Ethan for years, but his actions made it impossible for me to trust him or want to marry him. I've lost all hope in him. Today, he could do this to me because of Ivy Moss. Tomorrow, it could be someone else. I don't doubt his sincerity, but his sincerity is fleeting, and I don't have the energy for it anymore." Celeste's voice was filled with disappointment as she spoke, her eyes downcast. "What about Caleb?" Richard frowned. Chapter 23. At the mention of Caleb, Celeste's expression grew even sadder. "After Grandma and Grandpa passed away, Caleb and I were all each other had, so everything he did hurt me deeply. He's grown up now. It's better this way. Thank you, Mr. Hawthorne, for raising us all these years." By the end, tears were streaming down Celeste's face, and she hugged Richard. Richard could only hold her and comfort her. "If you've made up your mind, that's fine. Just come back and visit me and your mother sometime." Knowing that Celeste would not be returning, Richard decided to go back to his country. Julian accompanied Celeste to see him off at the airport. "Don't be sad. It's not your fault." Celeste wiped her tears and nodded. "I have my own life now, and most importantly, I have you." Julian wiped away her tears and pulled her into a hug. When they returned to Celeste's apartment, it was pitch black inside. Just as Celeste was wondering what was going on, the lights suddenly came on, revealing a room filled with flowers and balloons. In the center of the room was a gown that Celeste absolutely adored. Celeste froze, hesitating to step inside. "Do you like it?" Julian hugged her from behind. "I know you didn't have a happy birthday, so I wanted to make it up to you." Celeste covered her mouth and nodded, but joy was already spilling from her eyes. Julian gently guided her forward. "Try it on." When Celeste came out in the gown, Julian had also changed into a suit. They looked perfect together. Julian led her to a mirror. He stood behind her, looked at her reflection, and said with a serious expression, "Celeste, from the moment I met you, my world couldn't exist without you. Your outlook on life captivated me completely." His voice choked for a moment. "When I found out you were engaged, I felt like the world had lost its light. But I was willing to wish you well from afar. I never imagined that you would be here by my side, as my girlfriend." Julian kissed her on the cheek. "I hope I can always be there for you, and I hope I am a part of your every day from now on. Celeste, the tides exist because of the moon, and I exist because of you." Julian turned her around to face him, looking into her eyes. "Celeste, will you marry me?" Celeste was mesmerized by his gaze. "Julian, you don't exist because of me. Your appearance brought light into my life. When I first came to the US, everything was so strange. I was just a lonely soul drifting in a foreign land. But the moment you appeared, I felt like I had found a place to land. I will marry you. Will you marry me?" Celeste's eyes were already filled with tears. She was so grateful that Julian, her tide from home, had found her, the moon, in this foreign land. Hearing her words, Julian became a little flustered. "Of course, who else could I marry but you?" Celeste's tears finally fell. "Julian, I thought I would never fall in love with anyone again. Thank you." Julian lovingly wiped away her tears. "Don't cry. It breaks my heart to see you cry." He put on a pained expression, which made Celeste laugh through her tears. "How heartbroken are you?" Celeste asked, sniffling but with a smile on her face. "I need a kiss from Celeste to feel better." Julian played along, continuing to tease her. Celeste looked at him, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed him. Julian froze for a second, then kissed her back. Chapter 24. "Julian, thank you for loving me. I love you too." When they broke apart, Celeste's face was flushed as she confessed her love to Julian. Hearing her confession and seeing her blushing face, Julian suddenly remembered that he hadn't given her the ring. He frantically searched his pockets for the ring box. Seeing his panic, Celeste produced a small box from behind her back. "Celeste, you stole from me," Julian said, playfully tapping her nose as he looked at the familiar ring box. His tone was full of affection. Celeste stuck out her tongue. "You left it by the door this morning. It was pretty obvious." Julian froze, then said with a hint of regret, "So you knew all along? I had a suspicion, but I didn't think it would be today." Celeste held the ring box up to him. "Open it." Julian smiled helplessly. As he opened the box, he said, "I wanted it to be a surprise," but his expression froze the moment he saw what was inside. Next to the ring he had prepared was a man's wedding band. He looked at Celeste in surprise. "Celeste, you prepared all this behind my back, and all I had time to prepare was a single ring." Celeste sounded a little annoyed with herself, but Julian was overwhelmed with joy. He picked her up and spun her around happily. He only reluctantly put her down when she patted his shoulder. "Celeste, I'm so happy." Seeing how happy he was, Celeste took out the man's ring. "Sir, shall we exchange rings?" Julian looked at her and took out the carefully chosen woman's ring. "My lady, I look forward to spending my life with you." Not long after Richard returned to his country, Ethan and Caleb were released. A driver picked them up and took them back to the Hawthorne estate. "Dad, did you find Celeste?" Ethan asked as soon as he saw his father. Caleb stood beside him, his expression just as eager. Richard put down his files without looking up. "Sit. We'll talk." Ethan and Caleb had no choice but to suppress their anxiety and sit down across from him. "I found Celeste. She's abroad now and doing very well, but she said she doesn't want to see you." Richard looked at them, his expression serious. "Don't even think about seeing her. Celeste has done so much for you over the years. Let her do what she wants to do." "Dad, she must have said that in anger. If we just talk to her, she'll come around." Ethan had no intention of giving up. He stood up and started to walk out, but Caleb didn't move. "Caleb, let's go find her together." "Ethan, I've done a lot of thinking these past few days. Before Ivy showed up, I just relied on my sister. After Ivy showed up, I only hurt her." Caleb looked up at Ethan. "Ethan, I've been a terrible brother." Ethan looked at Caleb, about to say something more, but Caleb stood up and bowed to Richard. "Mr. Hawthorne, thank you for taking care of me all these years. My sister has left the Hawthorne family, so I no longer have any right to stay here. Please take care of your health. I'll come back to visit often." With that, Caleb left the Hawthorne estate, looking utterly lost. Ethan watched him go and collapsed back onto the sofa, completely bewildered. The three of them had grown up together, only to end up like this. Ethan covered his face and sat on the sofa, no longer able to hold back his tears. Richard looked at them and sighed. Chapter 25. After leaving the Hawthorne estate, Caleb moved back into the old house Celeste had left him. When he wasn't busy, he spent all his time training with his team. Meanwhile, at his father's insistence, Ethan spent his days at the office, handling business affairs. But secretly, he never gave up looking for Celeste. Until one day, at a banquet, he overheard a friend talking about Julian Croft. "Did you hear? Julian Croft is getting married." "Really? To which family's daughter? I haven't heard anything. I don't know her. I heard they met in the US. Her last name is Knight. I think her first name is Celeste." "Celeste?" Ethan, who had been listening idly, suddenly spoke up. "Oh, right. Now that you mention it, her name is a lot like your former fiancé's. I heard she changed her name. It couldn't be this Celeste Knight, could it?" The man joked, but seeing Ethan's serious expression, he quickly backtracked. "I'm just kidding. What are the chances? Haha." "Yeah, anyway, have you found Miss Gardner yet?" Ethan knew they meant no harm. He shook his head and left, but he remembered the name Celeste Knight. Knight had been his grandmother's maiden name. As soon as he left the banquet, he had someone investigate. Soon, a report was on his desk. There was a photo of Celeste Knight. Looking at the face that was identical to Celeste's, Ethan knew it was her. Celeste was smiling happily, her arm linked with Julian Croft's. Ethan looked at her face, gently tracing her image with his finger. "Celeste, how can you be so happy with another man?" Just then, Ethan received a text message. "Mr. Hawthorne, I know you are investigating Celeste. There's no need to continue. She is Celeste Gardner, but her name is now Celeste Knight, and she is my wife. Celeste does not wish to have any further contact with you. Please do not disturb her. Ethan furiously smashed his phone on the ground. He picked up the report from his desk and tore out Julian's picture. Who do you think you are? Celeste is mine. Celeste sat in the car on the way to the Croft family home, her hands clenched tightly. Don't be nervous. Julian took her hand. You video chatted with my parents so many times. What are you afraid of? Seeing Celeste taking deep breaths to calm herself, Julian found her adorable. It wasn't until after I accepted your proposal that I realized I had never even met your parents. Celeste felt a little guilty. Julian was about to say something more to comfort her, but the car had already stopped outside the Croft family's gate. Julian's parents were waiting outside. When they saw Celeste, they came over to greet her, their faces kind and welcoming. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Croft, Celeste said as she got out of the car. You're still calling us Mr. and Mrs. Croft? Julian's mother pretended to be upset. Celeste smiled and said, Hello, Mom and Dad. That sounds much better. All right, let's not stand around outside. Come on in. Julian's mother happily took Celeste's hand and led her into the house. You're even more beautiful in person. The gown you picked out has been finished. We were just waiting for you to come back and try it on. Your father and I have also seen the wedding venue. It's beautiful. Your wedding has to be absolutely perfect. Julian's mother held Celeste's hand, beaming with joy. Left behind, Julian and his father could only follow helplessly. This is a bracelet I received from your grandmother. Now it's yours. Julian's mother took out a beautiful jade bracelet and put it on Celeste's wrist. Celeste, you've been through so much. Now that you're marrying into our family, we will take good care of you. Thank you, Mom, Celeste said, her eyes welling up with tears. Julian's mother gently patted her head and smiled warmly. Chapter 26. Celeste stayed with the Croft family, and before she knew it, her wedding day had arrived. The Croft family placed great importance on their wedding. Invitations had been sent to all the prominent business figures in the city and even some well-known politicians. Julian was with Celeste as she got her makeup done, a constant smile on his face. So beautiful, I have great taste. Celeste gave him a playful glare. Julian stepped forward to adjust the train of her dress. Just as he was about to speak, a man who looked like a bodyguard knocked and entered. Ethan Hawthorne is here. We've stopped him, Celeste frowned. What is he doing here? Julian patted her hand reassuringly. Don't worry, I'll handle it. He turned to leave, but Celeste grabbed his arm. I'll go with you. Seeing the determination in her eyes, Julian nodded and helped her outside. Ethan was being held back by the Croft family's security at the entrance to the wedding venue. Why can't I go in? Ethan sounded hysterical. Ethan Hawthorne, Celeste saw him from a distance and hurried over, calling his name. What are you doing here? When Ethan saw her, he tried to run to her but was blocked by the guards. Celeste, it really is you. Come home with me. I've already broken our engagement. We have nothing to do with each other anymore, Celeste said, looking at him coldly. Celeste, stop messing around. I know I was wrong. We lived together for so many years. How could you just stop loving me? Does Julian Croft know about our past? Who else could you be with besides me? Celeste, I wasn't with you because of some debt to your grandfather. I've always loved you. I had nothing to do with Ivy Moss. We never did anything. Celeste, please come home with me. I'm begging you. Who I'm with is none of your business. What you did with Ivy Moss has nothing to do with me. Ethan, I stopped loving you a long time ago. Stop harassing me. How could you not love me? We grew up together. Over a decade of history, and you can just throw it all away? Ethan's voice was filled with disbelief. You can throw away over a decade with me, just like that, but you've only known Julian Croft for a short time. Do you really love him? You even found the video Ivy hid to save me. Right, did you agree to be with him just to save me? Ethan's words grew more and more frantic. Listening to him, Celeste felt sick. I'm with Julian because I love him. As for you, just looking at you makes me feel disgusted. Hearing her say he was disgusting, Ethan's face twisted in a snarl. He pushed against the guards, trying to get to her. Julian had seen enough. He strode over to Ethan and kicked him to the ground. Ethan, didn't you hear Celeste say she doesn't want to see you? No, it's not possible. Ethan struggled to get up, but another person pulled him back. It was Caleb. Richard Hawthorne also rushed out of his car. When he saw Ethan, he slapped him across the face. You lunatic, what are you doing here now? Richard signaled for the bodyguards he had brought to take Ethan away. Ethan, Celeste called out to him. Get a grip. Have some self-respect, will you? Her words seemed to finally break through Ethan's delusion. He instantly calmed down and let the bodyguards lead him to the car. Chapter 27. After watching Ethan being taken away, Richard turned to apologize to Celeste and Julian. Mr. Hawthorne, please don't apologize, Celeste said, feeling a pang of sadness at his weary expression. Celeste, my dear, be happy. Celeste thanked him for his blessing and saw him to his car. Caleb stood beside her, his head bowed, not daring to speak. Why did you come too? Celeste asked. Mr. Hawthorne said Ethan was here causing trouble. I wanted to help, Caleb replied in a muffled voice, his head still down. Celeste looked at her brother, her heart aching. Celeste, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. I'm back with the team now, training hard. I won't forget to visit Grandma and Grandpa anymore. You don't have to worry about me. Caleb rushed through his words and then turned to leave. Caleb, Celeste called out to him, take care of yourself. Caleb nodded and then practically fled to the car. Julian looked at Celeste and pulled her into a comforting hug. Don't be sad on your big day. I can't be with him his whole life. This is for the best. Let's go back. Celeste sighed and took Julian's hand, walking back inside. Julian's parents, having heard the news, also hurried over. Are you two all right? You're not hurt, are you? Julian's mother took Celeste's hands and carefully looked her over from head to toe. Mom, we're fine. Seeing her mother-in-law's worried expression, Celeste hugged her. It's so nice. I have a mom now, too. After the brief drama, Celeste and Julian's wedding proceeded smoothly. The entire city witnessed the magnificent celebration. That day, the Croft family set off fireworks from morning until night. At night, a drone show lit up the city skyline. After the wedding, Celeste and Julian returned to the U.S. In the years that followed, their news agency grew larger and more influential, making a name for itself even among the white community in the U.S. Celeste and Ethan never contacted each other again. All she knew was that after crashing her wedding, he had thrown himself into his work. Occasionally, she would see him online and notice that he had grown much thinner and didn't look well. She later learned that he had indeed fallen ill. Gradually, he disappeared from public view, managing the company from behind the scenes. From time to time, Celeste would see Caleb on TV, looking vibrant and successful. Caleb still posted a birthday message for her on his social media every year, and seeing him now, Celeste felt a sense of relief and pride. But slowly, over time, the three people who were once so close walked their separate paths, their lives barely intersecting anymore. The verdict is in for Ivy Moss. Life in prison. A year later, Julian showed Celeste the news on his phone. I never thought Ivy was capable of all that, Celeste said, feeling a sense of profound emotion. She asked Julian, what do you think would have happened if I hadn't decided to leave back then? Julian held her tighter. I would never have let her get the chance to hurt you. In truth, Julian was still haunted by how close Celeste had come to being killed by Ivy before she left. The thought made him hold her even tighter, as if it was the only way he could feel her presence. Celeste gently patted him. Be careful, you'll crush the baby. Julian immediately loosened his grip and gently placed a hand on Celeste's now showing belly. None of that will happen anyway. The three of us are going to be happier than anyone. I know.